There was a point in time where I was in prison with a life sentence. So the heaviest weight that I lifted every single day in prison with a life sentence was getting that life sentence off of me, not dying in prison, not letting that world swallow me up, not becoming just a person who lives in prison mentally and emotionally. Those were all the weights that I lifted then. So a lot of people, when they find out how much time I've done, they're always surprised because I don't come off like somebody who's done that much time. And now it's because every single day I fucking lifted that weight to make sure that that didn't happen. I call it the art of the mudfish. I don't know if you guys know what a lungfish is, but a lungfish is a fish that's able to traverse from one body of water to another body of water through the mud. Now the crazy thing is we all know if you get mud on yourself, that shit don't come off easy. Even if you get it on your skin, like there's still that little bit of brown spots where it was at. And if you get it in your clothes, that's done. That shit's fucking not coming out, right? But the lungfish is able to traverse through the mud without any of it sticking to it. So I called it the art of the mudfish. That was my thought process on it. So it was traveling from one part of my life, one body of water, to another body of water, which was another part of my life. The future is what I was looking at, without letting the mud of what I was going through at the time stick to me. So that was a heavy weight that I lifted every single day. In order to attain inner peace, you must have and develop an inner beast. The reason why we call this channel Inner Beast is because in order to harness and conquer your inner demons, you must have and develop an inner beast. So what does that all mean? In order to develop an inner beast, the number one thing you're gonna have to build is resilience. Once you have built up enough resilience, you will gain resolve. And resolve is the absolute foundation for an inner beast. So I think a good way to think about this, for me to explain it, is I'll use myself as an example. I'm obviously in decent shape. I think that comes through on the camera just fine. Based on my physique, I'm assuming people would also assume that I'm probably fairly strong. That would probably be a pretty fair assumption. The thing is just like everybody else on this planet, I'm not unique in this concept or in this idea, but just like everybody else on this planet, believe it or not, the heaviest weights that I lift every single day are not in the gym. They're not. The heaviest weights that I lift every single day are just getting up in the morning and going through life. Just going through life, just like everybody else. Getting up every day and going through the life that you have to go through each day, right? So I think for me personally, at this point in time in my life, my heaviest weights that I lift every single day would be the fear of not making my dreams come true. That's probably the heaviest weight that I lift. Now, that's at this point. There have been points in my past that, I had to lift different weights that were heavier. But at this point, it's going to be the fear of not making my dreams come true. I am so afraid of not making my dreams come true. The next weight that I probably have to lift every single day is not living up to the expectations that I both have for myself and that everyone else around me has for me as well. So not being able to live up to the expectations of, like I said, myself and others. That's probably a pretty heavy weight that I lift every single day. Then I have to lift the weights of, I feel as a man, I am a man, and I operate within the frames of actual masculinity. I have not abandoned my masculinity. So I operate within the terms of my family is my responsibility. The people that I love and care, not even just my family, the people that I love and care for are my responsibility. That's how I see life. So the fact that my mother is not in the position that she should be at this point in her life is my fault. That's my failure. It doesn't matter what she's done in her life. It doesn't matter how she got to the point that she's at. At this point in my life, I already should be looking out for my mom so that she's in the place that she should be at this point in her life. And she's not. So that's my fault. I carry that weight. Everyone else around me, I have a business partner. I feel that it's my responsibility to retire his parents. That's my responsibility. He's my business partner. He doesn't think in those terms exactly. He thinks it's a good idea, but he doesn't really operate like that. So I feel like it's my responsibility to retire his parents. Now, he's someone that I love and care for. So I feel like that's my responsibility. I feel that it's my responsibility to help everybody who's around me that I truly care for in whatever conditions they need help. That doesn't mean being a fool and a people pleaser for everybody. I'm just telling you that these are the weights that I lift on a daily basis, right? And if I do not work towards making all of these things happen that I feel are my responsibility, then I feel like a failure every single day, just like everybody else would. And it doesn't matter. You don't have to have the same weights. You don't have to lift the same weights that I'm lifting every single day, but you have weights that you got to lift. So, just like everybody else, the heaviest weights that I lift every single day are not in the gym. They're not. So if we think in terms of what people consider inner demons, right? I think the top one that most people will probably fly right to is, if you have no real concept of this, like if you've never really put a lot of thought into it, the one that people will fly right to is obviously the thoughts of being a bad person, just doing wrong, doing evil. I think people would probably associate that one really quickly, really easily. So if you're having a problem with any of the vices, so alcohol, sex, drugs, gambling, money itself, any of the vices, if you have a problem with just wanting to break the law, right? I think most people would feel that that's probably a good interpretation of inner demons. So that's a good one. We can keep that right in there, right? I mean, I lived on the wrong side of the law for a long time. I lived, like I said, my heaviest weights that I lift now are the ones that I just discussed. But there was a point in time where I was in prison with a life sentence. So the heaviest weight that I lifted every single day in prison with a life sentence was getting that life sentence off of me, not dying in prison, not letting that world swallow me up, not becoming just a person who lives in prison mentally and emotionally. Those were all the weights that I lifted then. So a lot of people, when they find out how much time I've done, they're always surprised because I don't come off like somebody who's done that much time. And now it's because every single day I fucking lifted that weight to make sure that that didn't happen. I call it the art of the mudfish. I don't know if you guys know what a lungfish is, but a lungfish is a fish that's able to traverse from one body of water to another body of water through the mud. Now the crazy thing is we all know if you get mud on yourself, that shit don't come off easy. Even if you get it on your skin, like there's still that little bit of brown spots where it was at. And if you get it in your clothes, that's done. That shit's fucking not coming out, right? But the lungfish is able to traverse through the mud without any of it sticking to it. So I called it the art of the mudfish. That was my thought process on it. So it was traveling from one part of my life, one body of water, to another body of water, which was another part of my life. The future is what I was looking at, without letting the mud of what I was going through at the time stick to me. So that was a heavy weight that I lifted every single day. So, I've had different weights that I've had to lift. So I lived on the side of the law that I'm talking about, that I was talking about. The need to feel like you got to break the law in whatever fashion. If you have that need, definitely you should be addressing that. But I think the next version that's probably way more prevalent and probably more common, and anybody that's really thought about it probably has this idea, and that's like the trauma that you're carrying, the baggage that you're carrying. So this can be, obviously, like I said, I grew up terrorized as a young child by my stepmother. This lady terrorized me. And as a child, you don't understand that kind of stuff. So I get where it's coming from. I understand what she was doing now, but at the time I didn't understand anything. So, there's that kind of trauma. Whatever you've gone through in your life that was or was not your fault, doesn't matter. Any conditions that have been placed upon you, whether you put yourself in that position or not, it doesn't matter. Anything that left lasting harm to your inner self, to your mentality, to your spirituality, to your emotionality, even to your physicality, it doesn't matter. Anything that has left lasting consequences and scars on you, so you can have that kind of trauma that you're holding on to. But when we think in terms of like the baggage and the trauma that you're holding on to, in terms of inner demons, it isn't just like the things that you've gone through. It isn't just like these things that leave a lasting scar necessarily. It's also the things that you're going through either in the moment or have been going through for a while. So this can include loneliness. That can include loneliness for sure. Loneliness is an inner demon. I give you my fucking word. That is an inner demon. I've spent most of my life surrounded by a bunch of people and still feeling completely alone, right? And for different reasons so I never felt lonely necessarily. I just feel like I'm alone. But it doesn't matter. Loneliness is an inner demon. The inability to follow through on a commitment, that is an inner demon. Procrastination is an inner demon. Seeking dopamine rushes constantly all the time, that's an inner demon. So social media is, a good indication whether you're always seeking dopamine rushes. Wasting time, like literally just wasting your life and not really doing anything about it, that is an inner demon. These are all inner demons. So I understand that depression is like, a hot word right now. So you have those people on one side that are like, you can quote unquote outrun your depression. And then people on the other side that are like, well, it is 100% debilitating and you don't know and nobody understands and all this other shit, right? But I know for a fact, I lived in prison for 18 years total. I've been around people and in positions myself where absolute depression is always on the table. And it's something that you can either succumb to or fight back on. And I have witnessed that the people that just get up and keep doing stuff day after day after day after day, just facing the day after day after day after day, they don't really succumb to depression. It's the ones that just sit in their cell. They eat jujubes and they watch TV and they just wallow in it. And those are the ones that they end up succumbing to depression. The ones that just get up, the ones that are just going through it, the ones that are just like, I'm going to make my fucking way through this world regardless of what it takes. They don't really succumb to depression. And it's not that depression causes, you can see it. These people come in happy. They come in fine. Well, not happy. Nobody comes into prison happy. But they come in perfectly fine and able to operate in the beginning. Are you afraid? Yes, you're afraid. I think it's once the fear starts to wear off a little bit, I think that's when you have to either face the situation and the conditions that you're in, or you succumb to them. Because in the beginning, you're just full of fear. I don't give a fuck who you are. There's fear when you go to prison. You could be the biggest, baddest motherfucker around. You don't know how prison's gonna go. Because you can be a big, strong, huge dude, and you're not gonna, 10, 11 dudes come at you with knives. You're not gonna make it through that. So it doesn't matter who you are, you can be got in prison. And anybody who's about that life knows that you can get got. So everybody has fear when you go to prison. So after the fear starts to dissipate or whatever, and you start to find yourself in the conditions that you're in, whatever those conditions are, for some people it's much worse than it is for others. But either which way, whether your condition is like, whether people are imposing the worst conditions upon you or not, that doesn't mean that you're going to succumb to depression or not. Some people do, some people don't. But it's the ones that get up and just face life. They just go through it. And that's how you build resilience. So resilience is you can only become resilient by going through the hard knocks of life. Life is full of bad things, guys. Life is just full of bad things. That's just how life is. Life is full of good as well, but life is just full of bad things. So you have to have the ability to see yourself through those bad things. Obstacles come, you got to make it through the obstacles. You fail, you got to move through that failure and keep going. You look foolish trying, you got to just keep trying anyways. It doesn't matter how foolish you look. You have to be willing to and able to move through the failures of life, the obstacles of life, the barriers to your life. You have to just move through them, regardless of how difficult it is, regardless of how debilitating your situation is. If you're not a fucking paraplegic, then you can get up and you can move around. So you gotta be able to just move through those things. That's how you become resilient. You cannot be resilient or become resilient if you've never gone through bad things in life. So you have to become resilient. If you are in the special condition that you've never really experienced anything negative or bad in life, like if you're really in that position, then you just have to learn to start seeing through all your fucking commitments. Make commitments and see them through, regardless of what it takes. I go to the gym 6 days a week. The only way I'm not going to the gym is if business gets in the way, like something legitimately requires my full focus and attention. So my dreams require, like something of getting my dreams out requires like my full focus and attention. Okay, then I will miss the gym. Or I'm legitimately too sick or too hurt to go. Not sick and not hurt, because I'll still go sick and I'll still go hurt. I'm saying too sick and too hurt to go. So there's just that little, it doesn't matter how I feel about it. I can get up and be like, man, I don't really feel like going to the gym today. I'm going to go to the fucking gym. It doesn't matter how I feel about it. I'm going to go to the gym. It doesn't matter how I feel about sitting in front of my computer for fucking 12 hours a day. I'm going to sit in front of my computer for 12 hours a day. Whatever it is, I'm going to sit through it and I'm going to make my way through it. That's resilience, right? So if you've never had anything negative or bad happen to you, you just have to make commitments and see those commitments through regardless of what the fuck it takes. You can't just fucking quit. You got to stop quitting. Just see your commitments through all the way to the end. Until that shit either succeeds or goes up in a ball of fucking flames, you're in it to win it. So there are some people, you're some magical fucking unicorns out there that have never gone through anything bad. Your mommy protected you your whole life, and so you don't have any negative experiences in life, and so you have no fucking resilience. So that's how you build your resilience. You make a commitment, you see it through. But for everybody else, man, you have to, it's seeing those things through, going through all of those negative consequences in life. That's what gives you the ability to become resilient. You cannot become resilient without those things, right? So once you have built resilience, you will gain resolve. And resolve is the absolute foundation of an inner beast. You will never conquer your mind. You will never conquer your heart. You will never conquer your spirit. And you will never conquer yourself inside the world if you do not have resolve, because you'll never see things through. Once you have resolve, you see things through regardless. You will, when you have absolute iron resolve, you will see things all the way fucking through, regardless of what's going on. Unless you come to a point where you're like, well, actually, this is a really bad idea. That's the only way that you'll be like, okay, the truth is we need to go a different direction, right? And at that point, it's probably more about pivoting than it is anything else. But that's how you get an inner beast. An inner beast is literally just resolve. Once you have resolve, you can work through anything. You can make it through anything. And it will not matter how difficult, how hard it is. You're just going to see it through. And that's what an inner beast is. Your inner beast is literally just the level of resolve that you have and the level of ruthlessness that you have with that resolve towards getting things done. Plain and simple. That is what an inner beast is your resolve times your ruthlessness towards the goals that you have and the commitments that you've made. And the only way to get that resolve is to become resilient. And the only way to become resilient is to move through the negative and the bad things in life. Just like you guys, man. Every single day, the heaviest weights that I lift are not in the gym. The heaviest weights that I lift every single day are just life itself. My go through is different than your go through at this point in time. I have built an inner beast. I have conquered and harnessed my inner demons. They are at my beck and call. I am not at their whim. They are at my whim. That's the best description I can give it, and it is accurate, I promise. You have to accept that all these negative things that have happened to you are just what was required for you to make it through in order for you to build resilience. You do not. I understand that this is the concept about this right now is different, but I'm telling you right now, you do not need to go back through those things in order to deal with them. I understand that therapy is trying to get you to understand these things. I disagree wholeheartedly. Not only because, and I'm talking from personal experience. So being terrorized by my stepmother at a young age. So you would think, by today's terms, if you listen to those people, you got to go back through it. You got to live through it. You got to resolve it. You got to come to terms with certain things. You got to forgive. You got to do all this stuff. But the truth is like once I had conquered like my ability to move through things, once I had developed resolve, you'd be surprised. All of those things just kind of fell to the wayside. They just didn't have the strength and the power that they once did. Now, I never had to go back and deal with any of those things, because they just didn't become, I'm stronger than those things. I have become stronger than anything and everything that I've lived through. And that's how you get to a point where those things don't bother you. You do not need to go back and live through them. You just need to become stronger than the impact that they were able to have on you. And then they no longer have an impact on you. Plain and simple. We can think of it in terms of immunity. So, you were exposed to illnesses a couple of times. And those illnesses did make you sick. But eventually your immunity to those, you build up the antibodies to those illnesses and you get stronger than them and you're no longer able to get sick by those same things. Definitely not as sick. That doesn't mean that at points in time, it's not going to be more difficult than it is. You can go through 100 days where everything is just like, okay, I'm handling it. I'm moving through it. Everything is fine. And then one day you just have a harder day. I understand that. There were times in prison. So I only allowed myself one moment when I was in prison with that life sentence. Every single day, man, I would get up and I would put my feet on the floor and I would look towards the door of the wall and then I would look towards the door of the wall because that's usually where they are, right? So I would just look from one side of the cell to the other side of the cell. And I would think to myself, man, I fucking hate this life. Not my life. I hated being in prison. I hated the prison life. And I said it every morning. I fucking hate this life. And then I stood up. And from the moment that I stood up, from that moment on, nothing was going to get to me. Nothing was going to bother me. I was going to make it through that day. And I would start brushing my teeth right away. And from that moment forward, it was just about making it through the day, regardless of what it took, right? So that doesn't mean, though, that every single day was easy. That's not the case. Some days were more difficult. I did my time mostly alone. So in the beginning of your time, man, a lot of, there's always people that are there. They fall away quickly. People don't stick around. That's just how it is. Other people have people that stick around for many, many, many years. I'm not saying that nobody does it. I'm just saying as a general rule, people fucking fall away. So I had already done 5 years. The first time I did 5, I was out for 4. I went back for 13. So when I went back for the 13, I already know what time it is. I already know how this is going to go. And I decided that I would do, once everybody fell off, which they did, that I was going to do my time alone. And so I did. So now my homeboy, Jonathan Blizz, now that dude was always there for me. I had people that always answered the phone, and if I needed something, they were there for me. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that nobody was there. I'm just saying that the people that were like, oh man, I'm going to be here every weekend. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. That stuff just doesn't work out that way. Anyways, I never really called many people. I would make a couple calls a year. I didn't get mail. I didn't send mail very rarely unless something was important and I needed something. So I didn't show up. When they called mail call, I didn't show up for mail. If I randomly got mail, somebody would have to bring it to me that knows me because I didn't show up to mail call. There are, of course, though, even doing your time where you're like, okay, I'm going to live both feet inside so that I'm not trying to, torture myself by living 1 foot out of prison and 1 foot in prison. So I thought about, all right, there would be times though where it would still get to me. Like I might be out in the pod when they call mail call or something like that. Or I thought they said my name, or they would say my name randomly and I'm not expecting, like there's no reason I should get something. So, your heart lurches kind of like, damn, who sent me a letter? And then it wouldn't be a letter though. It would be like, they sent me a slip because I needed to go to an appointment out of the pure blue fucking sky. They decided I needed an appointment for something. So, those days, that moment hits a little bit harder. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that those days, there aren't days that are a little harder than others. Some days you just don't feel as strong. You get up and you're like, man, I'm going to make it through this day. But you're just like, fuck, this is a rough day. You know what I mean? Like every day is not going to be super easy just because you decide that you're going to push through them all. The difference is you just don't fucking quit. You just keep fucking pushing. Regardless of what it takes, you push through. So I just wanted to talk to you guys about why we call this channel Inner Beast. And I know that I'm not giving this channel, the time and resources and effort that it deserves, but I got a lot of other stuff going on. And as soon as I make my way through those other things, like we're going to have a much better story to give you guys about where I started in life, where I got, and how I got to where I am now and where I'm going. And so right now, this is, we're just doing enough, what it takes to keep the channel, to build the channel as we also build our businesses and our lives. But you will, in order to gain inner peace, you have to develop an inner beast. That's the only way you're going to conquer your inner demons. And the foundation of an inner beast is your absolute resolve times ruthlessness and to accomplishing your goals. And the only way to get resolve is to become resilient. And the only way to become resilient is to move through the negative and bad things in life.